I came to Canada with the clear idea that I would be a documentary filmmaker, and I wanted to make stories about South Africa, the place I knew very well, and I was all about it. And I was told that I couldn't just start doing that. I had to have some sort of training and get into the business, because from South Africa I was pretty isolated. I did not know anything about the movie production kind of machine. So I took a job with the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting, and because of my architectural background, I got a degree in architecture. The person who interviewed me said, well, we don't have any spots in the architecture department, but there's a set designer down the street who might be interested in talking to you. And I went to see their head of set design, and he was a wonderful man. Rudy Dawn is his name, and he took me in. I started working as a set designer. I thought, this can't be too difficult, and I really enjoyed it. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, and the less I thought about making documentary films. I just like to build things and have them filmed and then see them on the TV later. That was just the biggest thrill. And it was there that Trevor Williams actually recruited me. He knew the head of set design at the CBC, because Trevor had lived in Toronto for quite some time and done some movies there. Trevor did a movie called The Orchard Children, with George Schaefer was the director, a very famous TV director, older man, and the set was a beautiful farmhouse in the cherry orchards, and the idea to build that came from Trevor, and he handed me some sketches in Toronto, and I basically developed it from there, and then went to meet his construction coordinator, who was the same guy he used on The Changeling, a gentleman by the name of Kenny Chang. And he was really colorful and interesting, and that experience was the first for me of really working with a top-notch crew.
When was the house last occupied?
Let's see, about 12 years ago.
Well, I'm sure they were looking for a place where they didn't have to build everything, and I know that Trevor must have been lobbying very hard to build everything, and rightly so, because that's the way the camera can have the freedom to do what it needs to do, and how he can control every situation. And also it's good for a number of other, technical reasons, for sound and so on. We looked for an exterior that we could possibly use without too much alteration, and we didn't find anything that had the Gothic quality that the director wanted. It just became clear that as Trevor worked with the director, that he had his confidence to be able to say, yes, we can build exactly what you want, and we went ahead and did that. And then it became a matter of extrapolation to build the interior. We knew what we needed from the script. We needed the interior, we needed that staircase, we needed the attic. So we were able to build the pieces, not the whole house, but enough of it, and then we'd cut to the outside. The garden played an important part, that pool and the kind of arcaded structure behind the pool. The greens, we brought in a lot of greenery to create the ambience. It was clear that we couldn't really sort of nail boards over boards. We couldn't do anything like that. Didn't have the height, didn't have the proportions. So we had to really create a facade with depth, so we could have lighting inside the windows and drapes and various kind of little subtle things that you see through the skin of a house. The most practical thing was to create a scaffolding structure, steel scaffolding structure, that allowed access for the special effects, for all the craft to get in behind the facade of the building and layer, for instance, for the fire, layer it with the kind of incendiary material that you needed to have, and be able to put that in the right places, and all very carefully tuned to the max. The other part of building that was, I have to credit the head painter. His name was Jimmy Woods, legendary figure from Trevor's past. I think he may have been on the film with Louis Malle. He was in Louisiana on Pretty Baby. I think that's where Jimmy Woods came from. And Jimmy Woods was one of these legendary characters. And he lived in a caravan on the set in the front yard of that house for the longest time. And he would paint at any time of the day or night. He had no schedule. He had no assistants. He would just be there, a crazy man with a ladder and a paintbrush and a hose pipe, and he'd use any kind of materials. But he did some really wonderful work distressing the new materials, because you go in with, building materials, plywood, plaster, and it all looks like nothing much until you get a magician start to work on it.
Wow.
As things are, normally you have wild pieces. By wild, I mean not tethered to anything and can be moved in units as a piece and not fall apart when they're moved. And that has to be done fast because when you change angles, you want to get that wall out of the way because the camera has to be there. And so we planned that everything has wheels, everything has glides, everything has a structure that enables it to be stood up and moved. We also did a great deal of matching of wood paneling materials. Trevor was a very great stickler for detail in terms of moldings and balustrades, and of course they were very important, and giving the patina to the wood. So he spent a lot of time with the painters on the interior, making sure that it had the feeling of an antique, of a decayed antique inside. And we were probably lucky that we could get that kind of furniture, but I know there was a lot of shopping involved. Steve Shuchuk and Keith Pepper were the two set decorators who really created the look of all the pieces of furniture. Did an incredible job. Well, I know there was just a tremendous amount of rehearsal of the bouncing of the ball, getting down the staircase. That was just something that it went on and on and on and on. It got right, but that's an example of the craft being it's just a craft. You just keep doing it until it's perfect. I don't know what the budget of that movie was, $6 or $8 million, not very much. In today's terms, you're kidding. You couldn't do it. Couldn't do it, but there was a passion. That crew that he put together, that Joel and everybody else, and the production manager, Jim Margellis and George Margellis, put together, was a first-rate crew. Trevor was a person who I think worked by telepathy more than most other means of communication. And you had to listen very carefully, watch him carefully, and just do what felt right, because he would let you know if it wasn't right. But if it was right, he'd communicate that by bodily gestures, and I never lost respect for Trevor. He was an amazing man, and I owe him a great deal. Really sorry he's not here. It was an incredible thrill for me. It was very early in my career as well, so to see my name up there and with these people, I thought, wow, I'm the luckiest guy alive. I actually had to go to South Africa because of a death in the family during that time. And being away, and then coming back to it really struck me how how far I'd come physically and emotionally and mentally from my home, you know. It's the immigrant experience in a big way. I'm thrilled that people still remember that quality of movie and want to see it again, and it's a blessing. It's great. It's great. I'm so happy to have had that experience in my career.